In this video, I'd like to talk about the use of square brackets, and we'll focus especially on how they're used in integrating quotations properly. I've done a video before talking about square brackets as a punctuation mark, and this one is much more specific. This video is just on how you can use square brackets in quotations. There are four main uses of square brackets in quotations. The first one has to do with inserting words that are not in the original quotation, and we might do that to kind of make sense of the grammar, especially after we've changed the quotation a bit. In this case, we have these ellipses here, and we've skipped a bit, and then we might need to insert something to still make sense of the grammar of the sentence. That's quite common. Sometimes you can even substitute your words for the original words, and that happens occasionally with pronouns. So let's say the original quotation used I, but that doesn't make sense with your signal phrase, with your introduction. You could substitute, let's say, he. Okay. You could also put I and then he in brackets behind it. That would be another option. I would hesitate doing that too often, though, because the more square brackets you use, the more cumbersome it gets. And often you can rephrase the whole quotation, the whole signal phrase, and integrate the quotation differently, and then you can avoid square brackets altogether. The second use of square brackets here is to change the first letter from a capital to a lowercase letter, or vice versa. In this case, because we have this signal phrase, this introduction, that runs directly into the quotation, we want this to be a lowercase m. And that's because all of this together is supposed to form one sentence if you were to take the quotation marks off. Because of that, we have changed the capital M to a lowercase m, and we've done that with square brackets. You can do it in the other direction as well. Again, often this is not necessary. You can just change your signal phrase. You could say John Donne writes, right, comma, and now you can have the capital M instead of the lowercase m. The third use of square brackets, moving down a bit here, is to add some clarification in your square brackets as to what something in the quotation means. John Donne in his poem here writes moving of the earth, and maybe that's not entirely clear as to what it means, so we've just added this little explanation in square brackets, and you can definitely do that wherever necessary. And then the last major use of square brackets in a quotation is for this little Latin word sic, which does not mean, wow, this is sick. It comes from a longer Latin phrase, which goes sic erat scriptum, which means thus it was written. And this little word means thus, and what it refers to is a mistake in the original quotation. In this case, this should probably be our babysitter, not baby hitter. And to show that you did not make that mistake, you can add sic for thus it was written, and that way you can indicate that the mistake is in the original text. Now, you don't want to use sic too often because it sounds like you're kind of snobby. And often what you can do is just rephrase or use a paraphrase, quote later on. You know, there are lots of ways to get around this. You don't always need to draw attention to mistakes in the original, although I suppose you can feel rather clever doing it. Those are the four major uses of square brackets in quotations. We haven't talked about every last use, but hopefully that helps you use them effectively.